Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Detour Live. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Dan Jones, joined as always by four-time National Road Champion John Iffy Trevorrow and a regular of the Detour podcast, Henk Vogals, former pro, hard man of the classics. Now, before we start, fellas, I've got to be transparent. I'm always honest with the listeners and viewers, and I've watched bugger all cycling the last 3 or 4 days. So if you're going to have to really carry this show and ask those cracking questions, mate, I didn't even watch any of Flesh, but I heard it was almost a stock standard result with Valverde, the veteran.
Yeah, well, he didn't win it. Normally he wins it. But, yeah, look, it's interesting, isn't it? We've got Henk on because he was a classic specialist, especially talking about Paris-Roubaix, because we have to do the wrap-up of Paris-Roubaix, men and women's. But it almost seems like a month ago, even though it was only on Sunday. We've got Flesh, we've got the Tour of Alps going on, so much going on. But, yeah, look, a great – Flesh is always a great race, and Valverde – you know, I think he's won it 4 or 5 times. He was trying, and he's 42 in about 4 or 5 days' time. And I'll tell you what, he pushed it really close, but no, the winner was the turns. He's a very, very strong bike rider.
Just on a technical note, if your microphone is not connected, mate, you sound a bit tinny. So you might want to work on that. So that's a good opportunity for Hank to say something insightful. You've been watching much of the Spring Classics, Hank?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously my favourite classic and race of all time is Paris-Roubaix, and I watched everything. And would you believe it, I missed the Arenberg Forest sector.
Mate.
But,
did you see the footage of the mechanic, the Lotto mechanic?
Yeah, actually, my mechanic sent it to me because he had a little bit of a giggle, Dave Manton. He sent me the footage, but yeah, pretty unbelievable actually that he's gone to do that, and now I'm watching it, I'm laughing. But poor bugger. At least he got the bike there, mate. He got the job done.
The commitment, like street cred from the guy, and Joachim Schumacher, who's the soigneur at Lotto, he sent through the day after photo, and he just had this massive egg on his elbow. He looked like Popeye, but you know that's commitment. And as you know, it's hard enough to ride through Arenberg with 2 wheels, let alone trying to hop off scooting through on 1.
Oh, mate, I've done Roubaix 5 or 6 times. I've done it in the wet. I've done it in the dry. And it is the most violent thing you can do on a bike is ride across that forest. And I've done it both ways. And one way, believe it or not, is uphill. And the general way they go, the way they went this year, is downhill. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but you hit it at 70k an hour. So I'm not surprised that wheels were folding and puncturing, and you just can't get to your rider. So that mechanic may have saved his race. So, but the Arenberg's just ridiculous. I did it a couple of years ago, and I can't believe how short my memory was because I actually thought I was going to die, and I only just got across it. So, and I was doing like 300k a week, and I've hit this thing as hard as I could. I got maybe a third of the way through, and I was like, "It's over. The dream's over." So, but yeah, it's certainly amazing. But the rest of the race, I can't believe how fast it was. I mean, I'm sure you guys both saw it, but there wasn't one time in the race from when I switched it on until I went to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning that they let up for 15 seconds. There was like normally you come across a sector, and the bunch is like, all right, have a glass of water, a bottle of water, have something to eat. It was straight out of the cobbles, attack, next group, chase, both groups. It was like full on Ineos versus FDJ and Jumbo Visma. And I don't think I've seen a faster classic. It was just incredible. It was relentless. So, yeah.
And Ineos, you mentioned Ineos were just superb. You know, their tactics for the whole race were spot on. They had 7 at the front at one stage when the rest of the teams were all over the place. They were superb. I just wanted to get your feedback on one part that's changed. It's the disc wheels, not the disc brakes, because it's put so much more pressure on. It's hard enough now anyway. If you get a puncture and you've got a normal race, you got your team car close, they do a wheel change. It's slower, but now with the disc brakes, you get a service from the neutral spares, and they've got haven't got the drill. It takes forever to change a
Yeah.
wheel. It almost takes you out of the race.
Yeah, in a race like that. So just to back up a little bit, when I did it in 98, 97, 98, 99, Roger Liege from GAN organised a massive shindig with all the supporters of Team GAN. So we rented literally the whole hotel just for the supporters. And the supporters, he got them fully on the piss. He got them a feed the night before. So their job was at the start of every sector and every single sector of the whole race, there was a supporter with a pair of wheels at the start, the middle, and the finish. And this may still happen, but and they were just standard like rim brake wheels, which was set actually the night before by the mechanic to the exact width of every bike, which is generally the same. So yeah, it's different now because no supporters have got electronic drills or battery operated drills
That's the problem.
pull this wheel in and out. So, and that's why you saw Van Aert take 3 bike changes. He never took a wheel; he just took a bike, and they're pretty smart too because he wants to have his race bike. So when he punches that bike, car 2 comes up, car 1 stops, puts a wheel back into his race bike that goes straight where the mechanic sits. He jumps. Next time he punches, it goes straight back on his race bike. And that's the way it operates. But yeah, I understand, Johnny. But like when you've got like these changes now with the drills, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's the same time because the drill is like in, out.
It's like
That's
Formula
it,
One.
2 movements. There's none doing this,
Yeah.
spinning it up.
The problem is with Milan, with Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix, the team car's not always there, and that becomes the real issue. So it's a real challenge for them anyway. But
it is, and that's why the teammates are so important.
And then you had that footage of the wheel absolutely collapsing. So there's no drill that's going to sort of sort that out with
there's not. Maybe a sledgehammer, Dan, is about the only good thing, and maybe a change of wheel supplier. But I mean, they're told to ride to the next guy, right? So when you've got the difference between tubulars and tubular, like as in glue-on tires, and high pressures, you can't ride a high pressure with a flat. With a tubular, you can keep riding it because it won't roll off. So they've been told, listen, Jumbo Visma might have used different tires because apparently tube less are the fastest, but generally you just have to keep riding until you can get a wheel. But it wasn't working for Jumbo Visma, so they won't be doing that next year, especially those 2 guys. If that was Van Aert.
Oh,
over.
Well, Van Aert, his wheel broke in half as well. Exactly the same. On the Forest, broken half, just the same as his, and he did the swap. So he was very lucky.
Live comment from the Wheel Wizard. He says, "Unfortunately, haven't been able to watch the last few shows live. Dan, check the last show for John's selection to win Paris-Roubaix, a guy who was never down to race, and his season objective was Liege Bastogne Liege."
Yes, I know. It was a mental blank. The minute we went off there, I thought, "What did I say?" I knew he wasn't racing.
Who was your tip?
Some French bloke with the world bands. But you're spot on. I knew he wasn't really riding. I don't know. I just had a mental blank, but because I knew that they wanted to win Paris-Roubaix. Anyway.
I understand why you picked him because he was. Remember when he got hit the motorbike in Flanders? So the guys can do the cobbles. Like he can literally do anything. He nearly won the Tour de France one year.
But I knew Liège, he was setting himself for Liège. I'd already been reading about it. He was on my mind. But
we've got another question, John. We've got one for Henk from Samantha. She says, "Can I please ask what is the difference between a classic and a monument race? I'm so confused."
Well, there's really 5 monuments. So there's lots of classics. Like E3 Haarlem in Belgium is a classic race in the classic seasons. So the classic season is really from start of March to end of April. So you can fit Flanders, Roubaix, Ghent, Wevelgem, E3 Prize, Waregem, Flèche Wallonne, Liège, Bastogne Liège. But there's only the monuments. Milan San Remo, Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, Giro de Lombardia, and I'm missing one.
Liège.
Yeah, so they're monuments.
5 classics, 5 monuments, and 10 classics. Yeah.
So but classics, so like you could even call a classic Paris Tours is a classic in France at the end of the year. It's a flat 260k bunchy. So that's a classic. That's been around since 1910, 1920 or something like that. So they're actually still classics. So, but yeah, monuments, those 5, you win a monument,
and Strade
everyone remembers who you are.
Bianca has become a classic, hasn't it? Strade Bianca is a fairly new race compared to all the 100-year-old ones, but it's become a classic because it's so important. But there's only 5 monuments.
It deserves to be. It deserves to be a classic too. What a ripper race that is. So, but yeah, the monuments they've just been so much history in those races, and they are the 5 probably most important races of the year, besides Worlds and the Tour de France. It's the Grand Tours.
And what do you think of the women's edition of Roubaix, Iffy? Track
yeah,
done it again.
I saw the final. Did you see the final, Johnny?
I did. Yeah, great race. Yeah. Well, you go first, mate. You're the expert.
Oh, you know what an X is? Actually, I won't go into that. I was going to say, no, we won't do that. No, I saw Spratty did really well. Like, she must be coming up pretty strong at the moment, because if she's riding off the front of Flesh Alone, then she's back. So it was I never did Flesh Alone as a rider, because as you can see how big I am, I was never really good at that. I only did Liege once, but those races are just incredibly hard. And that's why they specialise in them. But yeah, the women's race was really aggressive, and the Aussies did really well. Brodie Chapman rode the front and bring the brake back.
Wasn't she good? But wasn't she good? She was so strong. You know, she was on the front, closing gaps. She's really come of age, hasn't she?
Unbelievable. And they had a minute. That group were looking like they were going to stay away and win the bike race. And she, I wouldn't say single-handedly, but it was at a minute. And by the time she swung off and she did like a 10K peel, they were at 25 seconds. So she done the job. And as a DS, I reckon that her director sportive would have been incredibly happy with her ride, because they won.
Yeah. And she had a win just recently. I didn't realise it until I just saw her podcast. She had a win in the Grand Prix de Chamonix, a hilly race. So, when you start winning, World Tour races and doing rides like that, she really has come of age. Because I can remember when she won the Sun Tour, the Jayco Herald Sun Tour back, 4 or 5 years ago, and she was sort of, no one heard much, really a lot about her, but she beat Annemiek, and Annemiek could not catch her in the stage around Hillsville. It was a fantastic ride, and from then she's just gone from strength to strength.
Yeah, no, it was an unbelievable ride, that's for sure. But
Marta Cavalli, she really was the best rider in the women's flesh. Annemiek, as always, hit him. She's ran second, I think, 3 times or 4 times. Annemiek now never won it, but she's becoming a superstar. Marta Cavalli. She won the Amstel in a really good ride as well, so she's really becoming the star of the future, I reckon.
Next generation coming up.
Hey, Hank, what do you reckon about all this chat about moving Paris-Roubaix to potentially October?
I hate it.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. Like, it takes away, and we just explained it to the last person asked the question about the classics. Like, it's always been there. And you know what? As much as the riders, and you're talking about safety and everything else in the wet, but that's the time. Like, you're not going to get the same show, I believe, if you're from the riders, because that's when they're good. That whole year revolves around from Milan-San Remo to Liege Bastogne Liege, and the classics riders all want to be good for Flanders, Roubaix, Ghent, Wevelgem, Flesh Alone, Liege. They want to be good in that period. So you're going to take out the actual, the biggest event, the biggest one-day race of the year, and put it at the end of October. That's crazy, at the end of October. I don't know who's come up with that, but I'd like to know the reasoning behind it, because
they just
what's
want
the idea behind it?
They want it wet, and because they had that wet edition, and the drama, and it was isolated, so it got a lot of press. And when it comes to things like this with ASO, I mean, it's obviously coming down to money, so they're probably thinking, well, they've had to shift it round with French.
Well, it wasn't
elections and
ASO.
that.
It was UCI. It was UCI who came up with this idea, not ASO. I don't think they'll move it. I just don't think they will.
No.
You're really more likely to get it wet when even though they had nearly 20 years without rain, it used to be wet all the bloody time. Nearly every time you looked at it back in the old days, and it's just, I don't know why.
Yeah, it's like an oxymoron. So they talk about safety, so they want to move it on cobblestones, wet cobblestones. I guarantee the person that's making this submission is not a bike rider that's ever raced on cobble, because that's just crazy. Like, seriously, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Okay, we want it to rain so we can have a lot of ambulances there to pick up these blokes and ladies, because that's what they'll get. That's not sport.
I tell you what,
that's not sport.
Did you see the comments, Iffy, from our old mate Patrick Lefevre about Quickstep, when he come out and said that all riders are going to be racing for their contracts now? And this was after they skittled Alaphilippe in that race with the team car. So he's on the back foot. But on the flip side, you look at Ineos, he's a team that probably realised they're not going to win the Tour de France as long as Pogacar's, bopping around the pointy end. They've gone out and absolutely dominated the classics. They've really been the team this campaign, wouldn't you say, Hank?
Oh, absolutely. And I can tell you right now, Dan, that I'm really happy to see the back end of Mapai, Quickstep, De Koning, because they were always our nemesis back in my day. That's how good they've been. Like, chapeau to Patrick Lefevre. There's no way you can stay up there, but he's managed to do it for two decades. So, he just doesn't have the riders. His riders are not good enough. That's all there is to it. Like, he doesn't have a Van Aert. Yes, he spent a lot of money on Alaphilippe, and don't worry, he's still going to have an incredible year. But the thing is, he's a Belgian team, is with Belgian sponsors, and they need to win in those Northern Classics, because that means more to him. And I'd go out as far as saying, like, winning Roubaix and Flanders are more important to him than winning the Tour de France for his sponsors. That because I've been on Belgian teams, and we had Cadel Evans in the team who could win the Tour de France, and they would, yes, he was on big money contract, that's fine. But they never invested anything in Cadel. They just bought him, didn't buy any riders to help him. They spent all their money on Van Petegem and the Classics riders. So that was more important to them to get that one or two one-day Classic riders than get two climbers to help Cadel. And if he'd had more help than Lotto, he would have won more than one Tour de France, I can tell you right now. So, and that's from my perspective. And that's what we heard in Lotto de Vitamon in 2005, 2006. So it shows you, you can't just buy one rider and think that's it. You've got to build a whole team around them. So,
I was frustrated for Aussies watching it, at the Tour when Cadel was isolated so many of those years and didn't have the support because, as you said, they didn't build the team around him. And then when he goes to BMC and he gets the support, it's amazing what happens. So,
absolutely.
Will Wizard says it was the UCI president idea to move Roubaix, and Stiven said it would be best. He said it best when he said concentrate on rider safety first. Jared Davison says, can you get the sheriff on? It'd make his mum happy. And Samantha says again, anyone else struggling for World's accommodation? We lost ours now and we can't find anything that doesn't cost the earth. That'll obviously be a bit of an
I have a little bit of information coming on one of our next week's episode. I will throw out a little bit of information where people will be able to get accommodation at the Worlds.
All right, we'll stay tuned to that. We're going to have a quick drinks break, guys. When we come back, we've got plenty more detail to come.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank. and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Are you dreaming of the ultimate cycling holiday? Mumu Cycling is the best in the business. Official tour operators for all Grand Tours and monuments, you will ride the best climbs. Enjoy VIP access and race viewing, all hosted by some of the world's best pros, including 17-time Tour de France rider and Paris-Roubaix champion Stuart O'Grady. Start planning your ultimate holiday at www.mumucycling.com.
Thanks again to Bike Exchange and Mumu Cycling. We've got a couple more comments as well. Nolsey, he says, what a cracker of a show. Can't understand why you guys don't have more subscribers. Neither can we. They don't know what they're missing out on. And he also says, 20 years ago today, we lost a cycling legend, in my opinion, Graham McVilly. I'm sure John remembers him. Obviously, his son, Vaughan McVilly, come on the tour with us in 2007. So thoughts go out to Vaughan and his family. But, you know Graham very well back in the day, Iffy.
Oh, well, Macca was a cycle legend. One of the toughest guys to ever ride a bike. He won 3 Sun Tours back in the old days, but he was just a tough nut. Tasmanian. For a while, he lived not far from me in Gippsland. We used to go training together sometimes, and they were always a tough day. And he'd be going up through the paddocks, and he'd say, I broke a horse there last week. He used, on his spare time, he used to break horses in for people. So he was a tough nut. And tragically, he was killed in a horse event. But a real legend. Yep.
So what happened with Bike Exchange Jayco and Paris-Roubaix, Iffy? Because we all tipped Durbo to win. We spoke to Matty Heyman. He was our tip. He was up there, bopped along in the pointy end. And then he dropped off.
Well, Whitey will be on in a couple of minutes. You can ask Whitey.
Well, you've got a bloody opinion, don't you?
I have. I know the Durbo was beat, and he rode a real smart race, got up the road and come to him. He punctured right at the wrong time, and I think he had 2 punctures close together. I guess the second one put him out of business. And the other thing on with the Flesh, which is on Bling, ended up not starting with he got crook. And
COVID?
Well, a flu-y type thing, because he is starting. He's okay.
The flu's doing the rounds, because we had Jordan Bennett on the other day, and he is crook as a dog. And he said the worst thing about, he got type A flu, or whatever it is, and he said you'd be feeling good for 2 days, and then you got fever and that, and you crook as a dog again. And then you feel good for a couple of days, and it's just a cycle. He said this has been going on for a month. But he says it's ripped through the peloton. So anyway, but Matt White joins us live now. Whitey, welcome back to the Detour, mate. How you travelling?
Good, thanks, guys. Yourself?
Not bad.
We're all good, bud.
Yep.
Hey, great.
How are you, mate?
Good.
Going all right?
Good.
We were obviously just chatting about the classics, mate. What's your takeaways from a couple of the big ones? Obviously, we've had Flesh and Paris-Roubaix in the last week.
They've been pretty open, actually. The last few years we've seen especially teams like Quickstep really dominate the classics. I think Ineos have obviously been the standout team this year in the classics, not only by results but the way they've gone about their racing. I think the dynamic changed a lot when you saw Wout van Aert obviously get COVID. I think Jumbo started off the classics very, very strong, obviously dominating those first couple, and then taking one of the best, if not the most versatile bike rider on the planet out of the Flanders and Roubaix, or out of Flanders and the other classics beforehand, and Amstel changed things. But I know Walt's riding again in Liege, even though he's not a climber. I'm sure he's going to have an impact on the race. And looking at the long-range weather forecast, we've got a pretty Liege day penciled in for Sunday. I think it's going to be pretty cold and wet, and it's not a fun place to be, that race, when it's a cold and wet one. So be a really interesting finish off to the Classics this weekend. But it's been exciting racing, and for me, really open.
I was talking to you just before, Whitey, and you're talking about Nick Schultz, because he did a fantastic ride in Flesh yesterday, and finished 14th, and came back. But he's had some pretty challenging years, so you can take us through it, mate. Yeah,
look, I think the story of this year in general, and I just came in on when you were talking about before about sickness, and there's obviously a lot of stories from a lot of guys that you don't read about, and Schultz is one of them. This year we had Schultz came in with a little bit of a knee injury at the start of the year, shook that, and then he got COVID at our first camp in middle of January. And it's, some guys have bounced out of COVID quick, and some guys haven't. And then just as he was starting to get on top of things, a saddle sore developed during Paris-Nice. And I'm not talking. I've had a couple of saddle sores. We've all probably had a couple of saddle sores over the years, but I've never seen anything like it. It was the size of a golf ball, and actually he couldn't sit down the last stage of Paris-Nice, and he started the stage, signed on, and basically went 3K and turned around, and he had to have 10 days off the bike after Paris-Nice, which is obviously puts you back into your spring campaign, and he's like the reason why he was so happy yesterday. It's the first time this year things have been able to come together for him after a really challenging spring. So I'm sure he's going to do a great ride on Sunday. Then I've got him next week in with a pretty core group of Giro riders at Vuelta Asturias. But then he's having a rest before he gets prepared for the Tour de France. But no, he's had a lot of setbacks this spring. But it's good to see him finally showing us what he's capable of doing.
Scott McGrory had a golf ball size saddle sore on the track, and they had to cut a hole in his seat, just push the golf ball through so he could sit down. Anyway, hope you're enjoying your dinner to all the viewers and listeners out there.
But six-day riders used to get them quite a bit because the centrifugal force and all of that. And
we've got a live question for Whitey. It says for me in times. It says Whitney. So I think it means Whitey, not. What was it, Mike Whitney? Remember he used to host Who Dares Wins?
Yeah, anyway, good fast bowler.
That's right. Bit of a swinger. Has there ever been a thought that Simon could do well in Flesh? Lots of GC guys there, and he's great in those steep, punchy climbs.
No, it's definitely a race that Simon can do well in. But we've got our five of our 7 guys for the Giro actually just finishing off an altitude training camp in Andorra. So that's why you didn't see those guys in Basque. That's why you didn't see those guys in Amstel or Flesh or this week in Liège. We've wrapped those blokes up in cotton wool. They've been up at altitude for 14 to 21 days, and they're going to touch base and do a little race next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Vuelta Asturias before we head off to Hungary. So that's the reason why we haven't seen Simon and some of our other climbers at Lucas Hamilton at the Ardennes, because we're preparing for the Giro.
We've got another guest.
You mentioned Lucas.
No, if you wrap it up, we've got another guest, special guest, Burt Lancaster, who directed Ineos Grenadiers. How are you travelling, Burt?
Well, mate, just finished the bus meeting here in Tour of Alps, and getting underway pretty shortly.
How's the weather, Burt? You've had brilliant weather the last couple of days I've seen on television. Is it holding out, or is it you get a bit of snow today?
No, not snow, Whitey, but should be a bit of rain towards the end, maybe light rain, but hopefully it won't be too much.
Yeah.
Now it's got the Grossglockner today, isn't it?
Not today, no. Tomorrow.
Good research, John.
Okay. That's coming up.
Got any other zingers?
It's just that I remember racing the Grossglockner in the Tour of Austria. It's a friggin' monster. I think it's the highest mountain pass in Europe, road pass. So it is a monster.
No, we're definitely not going not that high today, mate.
Okay. There you go. What would I know? Alaphilippe will win anyway.
Now, Bert, it's been an amazing Classics campaign for Ineos. If you sort of come to the realization with guys like, Pogacar, you go, bugger the Tour, let's go all chips in for the classics?
Not really. I think we've got this really good group of young guys now. Tim Pidcock in the lineup, and the biggest surprise one was Ben Turner. He is super impressive, and we knew he was good, but no one expected what he did. And he was in the front group and everything, Dorsland, London to Amstel Gold to Roubaix, finishing 11th after working all day. So I think he's the next big thing, mate.
Well, it's good to see at Paris-Roubaix, Sir Dave Brailsford there at the finish line, because we obviously got to experience that in 2016 with Heyman, and it was just great to see Dave, who's been robbed of so many great moments in cycling, to get that moment in the velodrome. But on a serious note, it just would have been fantastic scenes to see.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't at Roubaix this year. I've jumped across to the Tour stream. But, Dave was there, and, I mean, Dave isn't at as many bike races this year. He's leading Ineos Sport with a lot of sort of under a lot of umbrellas there, but he turned up to the big one there, and I think lifted the team.
Now, when next time you're talking to Dave, you tell him just to answer his messages, or at least look at them, because I've sent you a WhatsApp message. He hasn't even bloody looked at it yet.
I love how we use live guests to do our admin, so everyone's involved in the conversation. Mate, he might be watching this and going, if he doesn't, he's lost it. He doesn't research. He gets his questions wrong.
He's starting to
standards, mate.
Doing a Dan Jones.
Probably goes through his PA, mate. So who knows?
So your program, Burt, you're going to be doing obviously a few more races here, and then do you get a bit of time off leading into the Tour de France this year? How's your schedule looking?
Yeah, look, I wasn't meant to be in Alps. Christian Knees got COVID, so I come and filled in. And then I'll drop a couple of the boys off at Bergamo Airport tomorrow, then off I go to Romandy. So, yeah, a few days in between to prepare for that. Get that under the belt. Then I'm going to head up to Tenerife for a week or so with other director, Steve Cummings, do a bit of planning, see the boys, and then I'll get a bit of downtime, and then Swiss and tour.
Anything you want to ask the lads, Hank? Oh, no, your audio's cut out, mate. We've got an audio issue. I thought you were quiet. I don't know what's going on. Can't hear you, mate. Yeah, I think your earbuds have gone out. Iffy, it's time to step up the plate, mate.
I was talking to Burt a bit earlier. Of course, his name is Brett. We all call him Burt, of course. I don't know why that come about. Some bloke Burt Lancaster of years ago. But you were saying that Richie Port is looking fantastic, really in good nick, and he's obviously going well in the Tour of the Alps. So he's going to be pretty good for the Giro. Tell us a bit about how his form's going. Bert?
Yeah, obviously we saw him in Torino Adriatico in good condition. Lost a bit of time on that last dodgy descent, and Richie's in his last year, and he's pretty open and honest about it. He doesn't want to take any huge risks like in races like that. He come to Catalonia, already had a bit of a chest infection, unfortunately. After a couple of stages, we had to send him home, and had probably 10 days, pretty tough, rough days there. But he's been building back now. He's at race weight now, looking really good, and he'll play that key support role for Carapaz come the start of the Giro very shortly.
Hang on, we've got the Wheel Wizard on it. He says, well done, John. Alps stage is on the Grossglockner, but not the longest climb, but on the opposite side and half the length to the stage finish. And then Cheryl doubled down and said, Tour Tracker says Grossglockner tonight. So hang on, Bert, have you read the bloody race book, mate?
No, mate. Told you coming in late.
He's out trumped
not the huge fast, mate, today.
Yeah.
No, it's not over the top. Okay, well, there you go. Yeah, we're both right. It's only a half a Grossglockner. I like that.
Hey, one thing I want to ask you, Whitey, is there's been a bit of talk about this sort of relegation zone, and it's popped up, Lotto's in the relegation zone. Is that something that teams are focusing on this year, given that, there will be the bottom two teams that lose their World Tour license?
Well, it affects probably 7 or 8 teams. It doesn't affect the top 10 or 12. But yeah, it is a factor. No one wants to be put back to Continental Pro level. And we're 12 or 1,300 points out of the drop zone at the moment. But yeah, at the moment, as we sit, as of today, Israel and Lotto Soudal would be back to Continental Pro next year if the points finish up today.
Yeah.
Geez, that's a former side of yours, Hank. You got your audio back working, mate?
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect, mate. Perfect.
Mate, you
I'll
think
just speak. I've been talking for 20 minutes. You haven't heard anything I've said.
No.
No.
I was going to say the history of a team like Lotto to be in the relegation zone, for them to lose a World Tour license potentially, that'd be huge, particularly in Belgium.
I mean, obviously I've ridden for them, but they've got to be one of the longest serving sponsors in cycling right now, surely. So that would hurt Belgian cycling immensely, even though they'd probably still get a hell of a lot of invites because they've got the world's fastest sprinter and they've got some good classics riders. So yeah, when you look at Alpecin, they get a start and everything, don't they? Yeah,
and look, the 19th team gets a guaranteed start in all 3 Grand Tours. So, if it was Lotto Soudal, they got to start in the Giro Tour, the Vuelta. They're going to obviously get a start in all the classics because they're a Belgian team. Actually, when you look at it, what are they missing out on? At the end of the day, where don't you see Alpecin? You don't see Alpecin in races they don't want to go to. They don't go to Basque Country. They don't go to Romandy. They don't go to those races because they haven't got enough climbers to do all those races or Basque anyway. So, as long as it's sold to your sponsor in that way, I don't think it's that big an issue. But you look at the owner of Israel, Sylvan Adams. So he's been pumping in a lot of money, and he's got a lot of big high-profile athletes, including Chris Froome. And I don't know how he would take going back to Continental Pro level. So it all depends on the sponsor. All depends how it's sold to them. But at the end of the day, the 19th and 20th team, it's not like they're getting banished. If you can say to your sponsor, I've got to start in all 3 Grand Tours, and we have to look for wild cards in other ones. It's not that bad, really. But at the end of the day, it all depends how that's been sold or how your contracts are with your sponsors. I know when we had when we signed our original contract with Scott 10 years ago, the amount of money we got from Scott, whether we're a World Tour team or a Continental team, was more than double. So that all things that factor into the budget and factor into those to that placement of your team in which category it's in.
Now, if Bert's obviously at the race live, is there anything you want to ask him before we let him go?
Yeah, Bert, thanks heaps for coming on, mate. Just look at your race book. I'd like you to make sure because the Ross Glockner is it's an amazing climb.
Yeah. We just bring guests on the ribbon, mate. You know how we roll here.
Well, I was hoping to catch up with your young fella, young Luca, last week in the Gambia because I know that he's back in Australia. It's Chipping just up the road, but I never got to meet him. But maybe next week before I head off to Italy when I go back up, hopefully I can go for a pedal with him.
Yeah, they're back in Oz for a bit, and he's really into his racing, so he's going to do some of these Victorian under or junior races now. He can do our Rat Tour next week and sort of maybe follow in the footsteps, but he's just loving it. And as you blokes there, he went out with Lee Egan, who was my mentor growing up, and Lee took him out in the bunch this morning. So yeah, all good stuff, mate.
Mate,
awesome.
Watching very closely. Well, thanks for joining us, Bert, and all
Thanks,
the best
Bert.
tour today, mate. Take it easy.
Thanks, mate. Thanks heaps. See you, bud.
Bert Lancaster.
Now, the question I was about to ask you, Whitey, when just as Bert come on, was we were talking about Lucas Hamilton, and he's had he had that crash when he went over the edge, Catalonia, wasn't it?
Basque,
yeah. So on Basque, yeah. So how's he going now?
Yeah, good. Look, it's all how you look at it. Look, I'm not sure if you watched that stage. There was a young kid from Jumbo who went off. It was a very, very technical descent that the crash happened on. Lucas was in the break that actually ended up staying away and winning the stage. And back in the bunch, so Lucas went off on one of the corners. By the time he'd actually hit the barricade, he was barely moving, but then he fell down at about 6 foot. And as he fell down, he's clipped his head, split his chin, and broke a couple of teeth. But that was all. As if he had cuts and scratches. A little bit further down the descent, young kid from Jumbo Visma went off, and he must have fallen 10 or 15 meters.
Oh yeah, he was a long way.
Lucky for him, he landed into a grass paddock, but he fell an incredible way, and he had a lot of fractures and was taken to hospital and had emergency surgery. I don't know the outcome of that kid, but it's obviously, if we haven't heard much, it's all good. But it was a very, very technical descent, and Lucas got away with it quite good. He damaged some teeth. He had to get some go to the dentist straight away. I think one of them's wired, and he's going to have to get some minor surgery before we head off to the Giro. But it could have easily been the end of his Giro campaign. So he's been training really well up in Andorra since then. I think he was eating out of a straw for a couple of days till his teeth settled, because he was having really big issues with eating sort of any kind of heavy food. But he's in a good place, and he's going to play a very, very crucial role for us at the Giro. And he's in a good place. So it's good to see. He's had, like another one, he's had his real share of setbacks this year. He caught COVID at the end of his first race block in February, and then got sick coming out of Paris-Nice, which is his first comeback race. So it's been a struggle for a lot of guys this year to get on top of things with COVID and a flu that's been going around. But he's in a good place now, which is what matters.
Good stuff.
Now, I was going to also, while I got you there, Whitey, I was going to ask you about Bling. We were just talking about him before, how, Flesh was a race he'd really set himself for, but he ended up getting crook and not being able to start. How's he going?
Yeah, he's back on the bike today. So he came down with a mild fever on Tuesday night. Woke up Wednesday morning just feeling empty. No, the fever had gone. But just out of precaution, more for Sunday, we didn't start him on Wednesday. So he was going to go ride with the boys today, and he's out of isolation now. So fingers crossed he can recuperate his full energy for Sunday. And I think it's a race that suits him. I think Flesh probably suited him a little bit better, but I think he'll be able to get some points for us. I think it's possible to sneak into the top 10, and then he'll be off to Romandy for a couple of stages after that before he finishes up his first part of the season.
All right. Dale's made an observation. He says, love Whitey's curtains. Looks like Ken Doan and a Mappe inspired. Are they Ken? They are Ken Doan, are they?
They are Ken Doan. They were brought from Australia. They came out of my wife's bedroom growing up. So she packed them one year, and we found them. This is my office down here, down underneath the house here. But yeah, they are Ken Doan. They don't work that well for podcasts and team meetings, but you've got to watch what colours you wear with them. But they are very bright.
Couple of big Australians around the Ken Doan. It was Ken Doan and Peter Russell Clark. Remember him?
Yeah.
Where's the cheese? G'day.
Peter Russell Clark.
That's it. All right. Well, it's been a big show. Really appreciate you being on, Henk and Whitey, Iffy as always, and Brett Lancaster.
No worries.
Anything before we wrap it up, Johnny?
Well, we haven't.
No more bets.
Poor old Henk's been half the show with his microphone turned off. So I was going to say,
no, it's all right. Whitey's got a bit more information to tell, being DS of the Australian World Tour team. So I'm sure everyone wants to hear a lot from it. And I waffled on about Roubaix for 5 minutes and carried on about the UCI. That got my little bitch out the way, so it's all good.
It's all good. Everyone's playing a role.
We never even spoke about the women's Paris-Roubaix, which was a fantastic race.
We did talk about it early on.
Did we?
We didn't talk about the winner.
We didn't talk about We didn't talk about Grace Brown went well. Tiff Cromwell, again, put in a really good ride. She's really doing some great team efforts this season, so she's really stepped back up. But what were your opinions of the women's Paris-Roubaix, Henk?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. There's no way I could have stayed up 2 nights in a row, so I didn't see it. So I don't have a huge opinion. I only saw some highlights, but it looked amazing, really fast. Once again, I just saw some highlights, but yeah, I love it how the ladies have got these races now. It's such a difference from my cycling era. It's unreal. So.
Yeah.
And it's good having them separate, like having their own day on the Saturday and then the men's race on the Sunday, because they get maximum coverage, and what we're seeing is like the racing's been really high standard, for a number of years now. And to give them that isolated day is great, because when you see them on the same day, like at a Flanders, it all just gets lost in the wash. So I think having them split is probably a good thing. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Well, it's tough to do it. I mean,
costs more money.
For a race like Flanders, the way it's set up. But with Paris-Roubaix, it's very hard to do them on the one day. It would be almost impossible, just because it's just the way it is with the common sections. But no. It was interesting with the flash last night yesterday, because they ran the women's race so early. I almost missed the finish. I thought, I'll turn on about 8 o'clock. It was just finishing because it was actually over as the men were starting. So very good.
Now, Will Wizard wants tips for Liege Bastogne Liege.
Yeah,
Who's
fair
gonna
enough. And we should be doing it. Yeah. Alaphilippe.
Mix it up.
Actually, I think Pogacar, because he got rid of
I don't know. Something must have happened to Pogacar after Flanders. He must have got sick, because it doesn't make sense why he didn't ride Amstel, because that's a race that obviously suits him as well. And obviously he wasn't on his best game yesterday. So
he detonated.
But there's something I've never seen him detonate ever. Something's happened. Something's happened between Flanders.
He did have a really bad slow wheel change yesterday.
Oh yeah, but that was far out, Johnny. I saw him move up.
It was a big effort to get back though. He chased for about 15-20k.
Yeah, I didn't know that bad, but I agree with you. I think he'll be the one to beat Sunday. He was okay yesterday, not his normal untouchable self. Obviously,
didn't he win it last year? He was defending champ, didn't he?
Yeah, he won last year. And Rodrigue's out with knee injury. Yeah. I think Alaphilippe doesn't look good at all this spring. I think that I don't know what's going on there. Look, I dare say they've had issues as well with a lot of people, but the Wolfpack have been. There's been not too much bark. There's been not much bark in the Wolfpack. I wouldn't be surprised to see Wout van Aert. I would not be surprised to see Wout van Aert on Sunday.
Yeah, he can do anything. Well, I'm a bit disappointed when he only ran Alaphilippe. He only ran fourth yesterday and didn't even see him in Paris-Roubaix. So there you go.
Yeah,
that's because he didn't ride.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
I've already got the whack for that. Yeah.
No, but I tell you, the ride of yesterday has to be, mate. It would have been unbelievable, mate. Alejandro Valverde nearly won yesterday as a 41.5-year-old, and it would have been his 7th win yesterday if he'd won that.
Yeah.
And how close was he?
He's 42 in 5 days.
It's unbelievable. This guy, he is unbelievable, and he also got sick after Catalunya. And hasn't raced until yesterday, so he missed Basque Country, which is something he never misses. But like the motivation, this guy has. Oh,
loves it.
We haven't had an athlete like this ever. Who I don't remember a 41-year-old. I know Zuderveld won the world championships at 41, but when have we seen a 41, 42-year-old?
Kelly Slater.
In cycling, in an endurance sport. It's incredible.
Danny Clark.
He is amazing.
Track rider, yep, but he was there. He was still bopping around.
Nolsey, last one, says, great to see Whitey. Will Bling ride the Tour de France?
Yes.
There you go, Nolsey.
Easily solved. Easy answer.
Heard from
he's got the month of May off, and then he'll do Tour of Switzerland to prepare for the Tour.
All right, cool. All right.
And he won't be going for the green jersey. He'll be looking for stages. He won't be chasing green this year.
Very nice. Takes the pressure off.
Someone just asked something about Jay Vine. I saw that pop
he
up.
said top 10.
He did a great ride to finish second in that
Tour of Turkey.
Tour of Turkey.
Hang on. I got intel. Matt Keenan said that Jens Voigt broke the hour record a day after his 43rd birthday. So it's always good to have the encyclopedia on speed dial there, fellas. Smarter. As always, we say youtube.com/a Detour podcast. Like, share, subscribe, tell your mates. Thanks, Whitey. Thanks, Henk. Thanks, Iffy. And thanks to Burt Lancaster. We'll be on again next week, so stay tuned. Bye for now.
See you, gents.
Thanks, guys.